Hello and welcome to a tier list video. I'm going to do a little series of these now that I've got, I would say, a decent handle. I was going to do this a little later, but I want to get ahead of it and then probably cap this off with maybe like a hard win streak guide, something like that. So if you just clicked on this video, you came in from the YouTube search, as I'm sure some people will end up doing. I will introduce myself. Hi, I am Voyix. It's always weird to say my own name. Anyway, I'll give you my credentials real quick. Screen change. My God. Right now I'm on a 22 streak, and that puts me at 6th on the leaderboards. I don't sweat it too much. I mostly just focus on making sure that I'm playing well, for lack of a better term, or a better way to put it. Making sure that the decisions that I make are good. But, you know, some people care about that sort of thing. Maybe it makes you feel like I'm more correct in speaking, but I don't feel like I am or am not. You can make your own decisions for yourself. I recommend that as your best way to play. Play the game, figure out who seems like they do well and who does poorly, find baselines, things like that. But I don't know. I'm a lifelong detractor of tier lists, but people like them, and it's fun to talk, so I will talk. So let's get to it. I'm going to edit this video so that in the space below, because this is a full characters tier list. I'll scroll down here. This is all of the characters. Shout out to Dream Traveler for making this. I am only going to do the tier 1s in this video, and then I will do the tier 2s and the tier 3s, and I will put forth the effort to edit in the sides of the character in the little black space below so that you can see what they do and things like that. So let's get into it, shall we? You're going to hear me also clicking through the almanac so that I know what the characters do. Some of them, specifically in the reds, I have a lot of trouble telling who's who, but let me just pull that up here. All right, and without any further ado, let's get into it. So I'm going to break these into 3 tiers, the good, the bad, and the clumsy. So let's go ahead and start off with clumsy, who is going to go in the clumsy tier. So for the tier 1s, I guess we should start by talking about 2 things before we get right into it. 1 is party composition, and 2 is what you're really looking at for the tier 1s. Party composition is an interesting thing in 3.0 that we never had to consider before, but sometimes you will just not have one of the colors. Actually, you will always be missing one of the colors if you consider green. So what you want to be looking at is how good are the characters in average parties. For me right now, my tier list is going to mostly focus on how the characters perform in the basic and the force parties, because those are the 2 that I play the most. I think the magic parties have a really big problem, and that really big problem is named demon. It becomes such a problem if you have like blue, blue, gray, gray, yellow as your team. It might be blue, blue, gray, gray, orange. Either way, if you have that team and you're fighting Hexia and she makes multiple demons, good luck. You are not catching up. So it is like they're defensive and they have that strength, but you know, the same sort of thing goes for like red, red. I think it's red, red, blue, green, orange is a party as well. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to mostly be talking from my experience, and most of my experience is on basic and force. So just make sure you keep that in mind, because I'm mostly going to talk through my intuition. So Clumsy here has 2 cantrip 1 damages, 2 1 damage cleaves, and 2 1 damage self cantrips. The problem with Clumsy is the 5 HP. At 6 or 7 HP, I think this character becomes good, but obviously you can't give a tier 1 7 HP. But the big problem is that the way that I play the game is that as I'm rolling, I will look at things like, let's say Clumsy has 3 damage incoming, right? Very common, maybe you're getting bit by a wolf. And you also have, I don't know, let's say you have Initiate, and Initiate is dying. When I'm rolling, if I roll and lock like a 2 shield, and then I roll the rest of my team, and I'm sitting there going, okay, so this 2 shield is going to save my blue Initiate, she's fine now. And you roll, and then Clumsy goes self-damage on you, which is not, again, not uncommon to see happen. Suddenly, you are just losing a character because you couldn't plan for that, right? You can't be locking shields in case Clumsy fucks up and dies, but it's going to happen. So, I don't know. The big problem with Clumsy to me is that the DPS is not worth the pain. It's a lot of effort to go through to get like what, 1 damage cantrip. It just seems like trouble. So mostly what you're going to want to be considering here when you're thinking about the tier 1 starting parties, because tier 2s and 3s are much more impactful in their existence, right? You're picking them and they're going, okay, this is the guy that's going to really take me through the mid game. Tier 1s is more about curse selection. By the way, I forgot to mention this too, but this is going to be in the title. This is for hard win streaking, classic hard, no modifiers. I just play the basic shit. No 5% generates or anything like that. When you're selecting your curses, you have to decide how powerful you are, and it's less important now because there's a lot less of the add curses, but curses tend to range in power from early game punishing to late game punishing. So an example of a late game punishing curse is like, we could say item poison is a pretty good example of a late game punishing curse, right? That's a curse where you are taking regular like 6 to 7 poison for that, but at the start of the run, it's doing nothing, so you have plenty of time to get yourself set up. Whereas an early game curse that's punishing, I don't know if you can still see it, but like Add Wolf or Add Goblin are early game because you are weaker early on. So that's how you have to approach it like that. So if you have a team of characters that is like particularly weak, you're gonna want to be aware, I suppose, of your curse selection. You're gonna want to realize like, oh, maybe I should just reroll this party right off the jump. I'm gonna add one more tier here. Sorry, I knew I was gonna want to do this. I just wasn't sure what I was gonna want to call it. This is gonna be the great tier because I know that there's gonna be a lot of characters that don't go in the bad tier, but I don't really want to call it good either. Let me just red this one, and then this one goes to orange. Just give me 1 second here. It's important for me. You're green, and you're this lighter orange. There you go. Much better. Okay. So, yeah, generally speaking, I think that if you have Clumsy in your starter, you just have to recognize that sometimes this character is going to die, and it's sort of out of your control. Sort of. Up next is Dabble, who is going to go in the bad tier. I don't think Dabble got much better in this update. I mean, Dabble is effectively the same. I think they might have gained 1 HP. I'm not 100% sure. But Dabble has a lot of nothing. The good thing for Dabble, though, is that you have the 5 heal on the left side now, so you can do a side replacer early, because a lot of the early side replacers are left side replacers. But mostly, I think that Dabble is not that good unless your blue is good. The biggest problem is that blues got a little worse, which we'll talk about when we get in there. Oh, I'm missing some of the blues, by the way. I'll pause when I get to them, and I'll go find the 2 that are missing. 2 of my blues are not here, though, because I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I should have 6. Anyway, I found one of them. Here he is. Cultist. Oh, you can't even see that far down, actually, because I added the new tier. Well, you didn't even see me change that then. Anyway, the biggest problem that Dabble faces is that your blues got a little worse because there's no more Mage 4-mana spell, so the mana generation is less useful. So suddenly Dabble only really has one side that you want to roll because you don't want your orange playing defensively. I also think that, like I said, I mostly play Force and Basic. This character can't show up in Force, so I don't have a strong feeling about Dabble since I don't see them very often. But if you like to play mana gain based parties, which again, I think are a little more inconsistent, Dabble is probably an okay starter if you're playing like a multi-blue party. But I don't play those, so I think that Dabble is a little worse as a result. So I'm going to put Dabble in the bad tier. Up next is Lost, who I'll think about it a little more. I'm going to put Lost in the great tier. I've always been a big Lost fan. I value damage output very highly, and Lost has extremely good damage output. The 1 damage poison wins you almost every boss fight on the first round. Like, it doesn't win you the game, but it makes it so that you can't lose to most bosses. Only Troll really can remain threatening, but Bramble just dies to this character so fast. And I think Bramble is probably the most threatening of the starting bosses, so having a character that can just guarantee that you don't lose to that. So specifically, I want to point out, if you have a party like Clumsy, and I don't know, it could be something like Clumsy, Lazy, Probably any gray, probably like Alloy, maybe Prodigy, or no, it's like Initiate and I don't know, pick a red, probably Acolyte. That party is just like a rough thought of a team where if you don't get a good first upgrade, you could see yourself just not having the damage to beat Bramble. And obviously on normal you're always going to have the damage to beat Bramble, but if you added in like a wolf suddenly, or like monster HP, suddenly Bramble can just outlive you. So you want to keep that sort of thing in mind too. Anyway, Lost goes high up because you have so much damage output through these cruel sides and through the poison that you will just kill things. And the 3 HP doesn't bother me much because I don't know, early deaths don't matter all that often. For the most part, your fight is decided on turn 2, or by turn 2, I should say. And by that I mean, even if the enemies aren't all dead, you'll have them all to a point where it's like maybe 2 guys left at 2 HP on turn 2, and if your Lost dies there, they come back to life next fight, you're never going to lose. So I only really worry about deaths if I think it's going to lead into me losing the game now, because otherwise, somewhere along the line, you will have a fight that you can just recover in. So I don't care that much about deaths anymore, is the moral of the story. Now on to Thief. If you watched the 2.0 videos, I was a huge Thief hater. I'm willing to give Thief good tier because of the reasons that I just stated for Lost. I don't care as much about early HP anymore. If Thief dies, I don't care, basically. So, I don't know. I'm not mad about Thief anymore. It's fine if it happens. Sometimes you go XX, but I think that your starting power is usually good enough now that it just doesn't matter if Thief rolls X's because someone else covered you. Most of the characters, I feel like the power level got kind of flattened. So, yeah, I don't mind too much. Scoundrel dropped a lot in my estimation. I was a big Scoundrel defender. I think this character is probably just like, it's somewhere between good and bad. I'm gonna honestly say bad. I think Scoundrel is worse now, which is funny because Scoundrel is unchanged. So I was thinking about this, right? Because I make these in my head just a little bit before I start the video so that I have an idea of what I want to say. The problem that Scoundrel faces, I think, is that the early fights changed a lot. There's just a whole new set of fights that are in the game. So maybe it's because of that. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it's because of the curses changing. Many different options. Like top 3 Poisoned isn't in the game anymore, and I fight a lot less of the add enemy curses, it feels like. So somewhere in there, if you dig deep enough, you can find what's the word I'm looking for? The cause, I guess? That's not the word I'm looking for. But you can find like the reason, the collection of reasons why. Because I think it's multiple different factors that shift Scoundrel down a little bit, in my estimation. The different starting parties, Scoundrel's a lot worse in the different starting parties now too. Like, I don't really like Scoundrel and Force, for example, because it's just a little worse. So, I don't know. It's not that good anymore. There's also, I guess there's a lot more characters that just are multiple X characters in here. You got Lazy now and you got Prodigy now. So, the early game has a lot more inconsistency in it in certain parties that you have to keep your eyes out for. So, I don't know. I think Scoundrel is just... it's almost wrong to call her bad. She's just kind of like fine, you know? Get rid of her quickly though. That's kind of my feeling. Because the big thing about Scoundrel is that the 1 damage vulnerable scales super well compared to other starting characters. You can keep Scoundrel late for the 1 damage vulnerable, but it doesn't really feel that way anymore to me. But I'm thinking it's just because the fight's changed, perhaps. Alright, let's go on to the yellows. Who is this? This is Brigand. Brigand is the same. He's fine. He is unchanged, and he didn't need to change. Brigand is absolutely fine. He is a solid starter. He doesn't do anything wrong. He hits his 1 damage self-shield, or he hits his 3 exert if you need it. Good guy. There's nothing to say. He is almost the standard, but I will not call him the standard quite yet. This is Lazy. Everyone's a big hater of Lazy. And I agree. I think this character is one of the worst. It's very hard to justify this guy's existence. I don't know. He is Gambler, but he doesn't have the 2 damage side. When he misses his 3 damage, you're locking a 3 shield, which is just not what you want your yellow to do. Characters fall into specific roles, right? Orange, yellow, blue, they're mostly about killing things. Red flexes between healing and supporting your blue, and gray is defense. They keep your characters alive. You want some flexibility, like you want your grays to sometimes be able to do damage when nobody's dying. You want your reds to be able to generate mana when nobody's dying. You don't want your yellows giving shield when people are dying, because the better way to deal with dying is to kill the enemies. You target fire down dangerous enemies rather than trying to block forever, because if you block forever, the enemies will eventually outpace you. You have initiative, you go first, kill 1 to 2 enemies, and you'll be much better off. So for that reason, Lazy having 2 3s, but one of them is a shield, puts him in the bottom tier. If it was 2-3 damage sides, I think this character would probably be like good, if not great. So as it sits though, oh god. Fuck Lazy. I hate him so much. Hoarder is still great. Hoarder did effectively get an X with his 2 damage death side, but it doesn't matter because all of his sides are 2 damage now, always. And I don't really have anything else to say. I think he's really good. He was really good before, he's really good now. I think he's probably going to remain very good. But he got maybe a little worse because of the 2 damage death, but he interacts super well with a lot of the tactics, which are new. The tier 1s don't have any tactics other than the greens, but I think Knight likes Hoarder a lot. I don't know. I'm not 100% on that. The next guy is Fighter. Fighter is the bog standard, shows up and does his job guy. He hits his 2s, sometimes he hits his 1s, and when he X's out, he just rolls 1 shield. Whatever, man. I don't really care. That is my final opinion on this guy. He's like, you replace him by combat 8, or you just have like a dead unit. He is so worthless past combat 8. Suddenly 2 damage is meaningless, and he is a joke. But he's good in the first like 7 fights, so I almost want to put in like I'm not going to put in another tier, but I almost want to put in another tier that's like replace ASAP instead of the clumsy tier, because you don't want to be holding this guy forever, because again, your yellow is supposed to be your big damage powerhouse, and this guy stops doing damage very quickly, or stops doing meaningful damage as the fights scale up. So that's the trouble. Just make sure you're getting rid of him. Ruffian has improved a lot in my estimation. I don't know why, but I think I'm gonna give him good. I don't really like, intuitively when I have Ruffian, I just go, oh sweet, it's great, he's so nice here. But I haven't really worked out why I like having Ruffian in my starting team, because he is the same, he is unchanged, but I'm never mad about him. Like, he just shows up, he hits his 5s. I might actually just be on a lucky streak where he's hitting a bunch of 5s. I'm not sure, but I think Ruffian is just fine now. He is acceptable as my starting yellow. It might just be that with the addition of Lazy, I am glad to not have Lazy, so Ruffian just gets bumped up a tier because hey, at least he isn't fucking lazy. But that doesn't seem right. I don't know. Hard to say. Alloy got very changed in this update, and I don't know. It's like, I think Alloy is probably still bad, but like not that bad. The only thing that's sad is that Alloy lost the 1 mana gain side, but these sides are pretty good. Alloy, I don't know. It doesn't feel like she dies as often anymore. And I think it's probably because she has a lot more self-shielding built in. She has the cleave shield, she has the 1 damage self-shield, she has the 1 damage repel. I don't know. I think Alloy ends up just being fine. But like, on the lower end of fine, where Ruffian's on the higher end of fine, it's fine. My opinion mostly is that you're not rerolling based on party, but you need to be sure that you're picking your curse correctly. So like properly estimating your power is important. And You're on the weaker side with these guys. You're on the stronger side with these guys for the early game, primarily. But it's close. You could move her up or down. Gray, mostly you don't consider your gray that much because they're the least impactful role. The bald brother Buckle. I think Buckle's actually good. I was a long time Buckle hater, but he consistently hits his shields. It's not too often that you're going to triple X on 2X sides, and 6 HP, 2 damage heavy, he's alright. He does his job fine. He flexes into his damage fairly often, and I don't know. Like I said, it almost feels like a waste to spend so much time on these grays because I don't care that much about my grays. Although, Wallop, this guy's the GOAT. He's going in the great tier. My god, he actually hits threes. He has a Deathify, he has stuns. He's pretty bad at keeping your other characters alive, except for the Deathify. But, like, mostly he's just bad at dealing with pain. But there's only Ruffian and Cultist, so I don't really care. And Wallop hits big numbers and never dies. Love this guy. Where are you? You're Squire. I actually thought this was Defender. Squire is like, he's probably on the weaker side to me. He's like better than these guys, but I don't feel right putting him up a tier. The good news is that he always rolls defensive if you need it. The bad news is that 2 self shield almost always means that he's going to be redirecting damage that just kills him. Like if you have a character that's 5 HP, right, and they're taking 6 damage, he redirects and self shields too. If he's taking damage, he is just killing himself to save that person with a 2 damage redirect. Whereas if he just had a 2 shield, we would both be living, right? The scenario here is like you have a Squire taking 3 damage, you have another character at 5 HP taking 6 damage, you redirect, and in that position you die, where normally you would just put up a 2 shield and live. So his redirect mostly just sucks and ends up killing him more often than not. And the other thing I notice is that it's super hard to proc his focus shield in the early game. I'm never locking heals out of my reds, so how do you ever proc this? I guess in Force, you could probably do it with double gray. It just doesn't happen that often, so... Man, I actually really don't like Squire, now that I talk it out. Because his best case a lot of times is he rolls a single shield. I mean, he rolls a 2 shield, and that's your wow, he did it. So, yeah, and then Defender's fine. He's like probably the best of the worst, which is to say, whatever, man. He hits 3 or 2 shield. He hits the 1 damage if you need it. I don't care. He has 7 HP, I guess. That's his big feeling. That's his, like, call to fame, I suppose. But it's like, what do you do with this guy? You put shields up and then you go, huh, are you, like, most of the time what I do with Defender is I go, huh, you're still here on combat 10. Well, anyway, because it doesn't make a big difference. A lot of times he will be rolling the exact same effect as a tier 2 gray. But if you're high rolling with him, you're just mid rolling with a better gray. So, which is a good thing, by the way. That's a point in his favor. On his best days, he's as good as the rest of the grays in the next tier up. So he can have a pass and stick around for a long time, which is nice. But he's not like strong. He's just not weak. And I guess that's where I'll leave it for him. Okay, into the reds. The reds are interesting because they're fairly tied to the blues, but not as tied as they once were because the blues got a little worse in this update. So let's start with Healer here. Healer got nerfed. Healer, I think, was better before, but now you never roll an X. And the spell got changed to be a little better as well. My Healer opinion is that they're about the same in the tier list, which is slightly above average. I imagine that this character is like... Your mana gain is a little less consistent, but Healer is a lot better on turn 2 and beyond because the heals are massive. You are healing huge numbers with this character, but a lot of the time you're going to be wasting your first turn because you're just going to roll heal, heal, heal. However, I don't know, character's super good if you have someone like Cultist. The problem is that nobody else really has pain effects, so healing on turn 1 is not very useful, I guess is the right term. but healing becomes better as the fights go later and you start to pick up characters like Berserker or, God forbid, I mean, it can't happen, but Barbarian, right? Not with healer anyway, but with healing effects, so I'm coming around on healing a little bit. It's also good if you pick up something like Scar, but I'm not going, oh baby, let's go, it's Scar. I have the healer Scar combo. Oh yeah, I'm going. I guess. It's a tier 1, whatever. So, but empty max HP exists and is fine, and if you have healer, it's nice. So, you can have a pass for that. This is Splint. Splint is still the GOAT. Love this character. There's not a lot to say. You hit 3 mana, you hit 2 mana, the fight ends. You hit 1 mana, whatever. Bandage is also unchanged and an extremely good spell. So, was Bandage? It wasn't 1 before, it was definitely 2. She's just really good. She keeps you alive proactively or reactively, and she pumps big mana to let you kill things or defend yourself. Very good. Where you? Your Acolyte. Acolyte got, like, mega buffed, by the way. This character can't roll an X anymore and starts with a cleave. I think Acolyte's pretty good. The heal 2 vitality, or the heal 3 vitality is fine, but mostly you're just locking 1 mana, and I think that generally speaking, the early game strategy, if you're playing around mana, has changed quite a bit. You have to recognize the shift, because a lot of the ways that you made 2 mana in the past are gone from the reds. Like Acolyte is now here and is always 1 mana. I mean, Healer still has the 2 mana, but your 1 mana fallbacks are gone. And the new characters, like, you only have, like, you have 3 characters that can hit above 2 mana, but you can't consistently hit it. So I'm finding that if you're playing with a strong blue, which again, doesn't really exist, I guess, anymore. There's not really a carry blue. Well, we'll talk more in depth about it later. What you end up doing, though, is you end up just kind of locking 1 mana over and over again and building it up that way, instead of just going for 2+2 and then blowing enemies away in a single turn. It's much more frequent that you're just going like, I'll take 1 mana here, and then next turn another mana, and I have a burst. And that's fine, because there's not much else to do on your turn 1, so you may as well take the 1 mana. But Acolyte does have the power of being able to actually influence the fight on turn 1 with Vitality, Heal, or Cleanse, depending on the fights. So there is that as well. Very unlikely that this character is doing nothing for you, but they're never doing anything super impactful, is their main issue. Who's this? This is Mystic. Mystic also got buffed. I think this character lands like, I don't know. You can put him at, I'm just gonna put him in the bad tier. It's close though. This is almost like I'm just putting her here to balance it out. She can go in the good or the bad tier. I basically feel nothing about Mystic. She contributes 1 mana every turn, and sometimes that mana comes with a heal, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think it matters too much because most of the time the fights are done before you even need the heal. So yeah, on paper this character is pretty bad. You never press her spell either. Yeah, alright. Goodbye, Mystic. I'm done with you. You are dead to me now. The newcomer, by the way, Gardener. This character, I haven't gotten a ton of play with Gardener, but I think that Gardener could probably end up getting promoted to the great tier. I'll put her in good for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few months from now I come back and I do another tier list and I end up putting this character in the top. Hemlock is a super strong spell. It pushes lots of damage in boss fights. It's the same thing as Lost, basically, where you're never going to lose boss fights with Gardener. And the the Gruth is strong. Like, it's nice, and you can slow build. Suddenly, if you have nothing better to do on turn 1, right? Like, you're not playing for mana, you can just lock this Mega Growth, and suddenly you're bursting and healing 2 on turn 2. Like, out of nowhere, this character, if you do a little setup, is hitting like tier 3 red levels of power, which is solid. Very, very good. So shout out to Gardener. Really nice that one of the new characters isn't horrific. One of the new basic color characters. Although, you know what? Sorry, my fault, Wallop. You're actually kind of a god, so I apologize. I almost forgot about him. You know, he's a gray. Lamau. Alright, into the blues. Up first we have Initiate, who I think is about the same, and the same is bad. but I don't know. I don't even think this character is a good note of, hey, at least you kill Bramble. I don't find myself dying to Bramble all that often. I just reference him because he's the most dangerous starting boss. What I will say for Initiate is she got a little bit better because Hoarder picked up an Exert side, so now there's one more character that likes the Gather effect, but it's not very good, basically. I don't really have anything else to say. It's just not very good. The 1 mana gain single uses are disappointing. Sometimes you make 2 mana with the cantrip mana. I think often if you roll the cantrip mana, you just lock in, take it, and take the guaranteed burst. But good luck ever rolling growth multiple times. Fuck you, Initiate. But even more so than fuck you, Initiate, Prodigy, this guy is scum. This guy is actual scum. I hate him, and I think most people will agree that they also hate him. Prodigy is just awful. There is almost no redeeming this guy. He has 2 single-use 3-mana sticks. The problem is that his spell is worthless. Like, almost every time I cast the spell, I just go, man, I would be better off bursting here. Because it's only 1 more damage than burst, but it's spreading your damage, and most of the time it's in a way that doesn't matter. Like, you're just almost always better off not spreading your damage, and if your fight goes to turn 3, this dude is statue with 4 HP, which is, it's just pretty irredeemable. I don't think there's anything good that can be said about Prodigy, because where Splint here gets a pass because Splint has 3-2-1, but Splint also has a good spell that has strong impact. This character, Prodigy, has 3-3, and, to be fair to Splint, the 5s at the top and the bottom, the heals, are usually worthless, and the 1 mana stick is also not that good. So having it combined, like having all of those sides combined into 2-3 mana sides are very similar. The difference is that this guy is supposed to be bringing a good spell that impacts the game in a meaningful way, and his spell sucks. And Splint brings the spell. Reds aren't even supposed to bring anything meaningful. I don't know when the last time I cast a red spell is and was excited about it. I mean, Hemlock for tier 1s, I guess. But in 2.0, like, I'm never pressing Acolyte spell or Healer spell or Mystic spell. So having a spell that is clickable here is like, whoa, Splint, pop off, Whereas this guy is going up against, well, garbage now, but we'll get into that. So yeah, just fuck you, Prodigy. Moral of the story. Mage, I was shocked to see the changes. I won't lie to you. I didn't believe it when I first read it. Mage got a lot worse, and that still puts him in the good tier because the rest of the blues are, they're actually not that bad. He's just up against Initiate and Prodigy, so Mage gets to go higher up because he's not them, pretty much. But his spell got changed to just be a 1 damage ping, which isn't bad. It's just a lot worse than Flare. His Poke is fine. It does exactly what it's supposed to do, and there's nothing wrong with it. And he makes his 2 mana consistently, so ultimately Mage, he does his job. He shows up, he gives you the way to do 2 damage. When your your red inevitably locks you 1 mana, your Mage then turns that into a 3rd damage if you need it. That's cool. Being able to convert 3 damage to 3 mana, or 3 mana to 3 damage, I should say, is nice, because having to make 2 mana to burst to kill an enemy on 1 is sad. But he got a little bit gutted. And that's fine. He deserved it, to be honest. So, I don't have anything else to say, I guess, about Mage. He makes his mana, he does his 1 damage, he shows up to work, he does fine. Student. The only character, I was actually thinking, man, am I really gonna shit on only the new characters? Nah, fuck you, Student. I still hate Student. I've always hated Student. I hate his stupid bowl cut. I hate his worthless ass spell that he's never gonna cast because he's not gonna make any mana. The Student, he's like the ultimate gambler. You're sitting there just praying he hits reuse, and on turns where he doesn't hit reuse, this character is doing nothing. The only nice thing is that since the shift is like, yeah, now I mostly just want to make 1 mana, I guess we can slow play with Student is not crazy, but yeah, I'm not about it, man. He's just sitting there rolling a bunch of X's and being disappointing. Maybe he'll study up for Slice and Dice 4.0 to be less of a piece of shit, but I have my doubts. Again, Slice, it's like this spell, but harder to cast. And if I don't like the 1 damage cleave, I'm really not gonna like this one. So it's just tough. But I mean, if you ever make good use of the reuse, that's cool. My theory actually for Student is that he might perform better on the higher difficulties because suddenly, like, making 1 mana and playing slow isn't viable anymore, and Student can just let you rocket out big turns if you have to high roll to win, right? But I don't know. I doubt it. I really don't think this character is ever going to see the light of day in my good graces. However, back from the dead, I was cooling on Cultist a lot, but Cultist gets to go right back up to the great tier. At the end of 2.0, I remember thinking Cultist was a little bit worse, but yeah, I think he's super good now. I think he's very, very good. He didn't change at all either. He's the same, but the reds are all a lot better at healing, I think. Like, healer always heals, Acolyte's better at it. Splint is the same, and Splint was already good. Acolyte, who's the other one? Mystic. Mystic got more healing built in, and Gardener has healing built in. So just in general, it's a lot easier to support Cultist and not let him die. And so you can just pump 4+4 and have him live very regularly. And I don't know, if this man makes you 8 mana and walks away from the fight, holy. Shout out the boy, for sure. So, yeah, I think he just got a lot better. I'm missing one of my blues. Where is, here they are, Meddler. So this one's highly contentious. I've seen 2 opinions about Meddler. Meddler is either to you the worst character in the game or the best character in the game. To me, I think Meddler is the best character. I think Meddler is maybe not the actual best tier 1, but very, very close to the top. And it comes all back down to one very simple thing. The spell is crazy. It's so, so good. Kill an enemy with exactly 3 HP. I want to say, first and foremost, I think Meddler is one of the best designed characters in this game. It's so cool how well this character plays. You make bones, and then as soon as you kill a bones, you get to chain into killing it with Meddler's spell for free. That shit's so sick, man. And I don't know, I like so cool. I love Meddler so much from a design standpoint. What a nice character. But my main point is that the highs for Meddler are so insane, where you're just making 3 mana and killing things with that. And the lows, I've had the worst case. I had Meddler triple roll me bones in combat 2 versus a hard fight, and I still won. So maybe it's just that I'm built different or the team was good, but I had one of the worst possible outcomes, and Meddler still just pumped out so much damage that it didn't matter. Like the following turn, I guess, if you roll triple bones again, I don't know, seek help. But it's like, the big thing about Meddler is, I think if you have to recognize if you're in a position where another bones will kill you, and if you are, you have to stop rolling. That's probably the big thing. You just don't take the risk. Stop pushing your luck, pretty much. But I think Meddler is super good. Maybe the best of the tier 1s. It's pretty close. It's like, it's Meddler or maybe Hoarder or Lost or Cultist. I mean, any of these top tiers I think are good. Probably I wouldn't say Wallop, but maybe. And I'll run through the greens real quick. I don't play much of the greens, but I will run through them anyway for you. I'll give you my quick takes. I think they're actually, the tier 1 greens are, I'm missing one, hang on. Where is QRS? He's in, here he is, this guy. I'm missing Tinder. Let's go through them real quick. Pockets is actually pretty good. I actually don't have any problem with Pockets. I think Pockets is a pretty solid starter. Usually the items are worthless, but very infrequently you can have a tier 0 that just wins your run. Cranberry had a cool one where he had Hidden Strength, which is 0. It's the bottom side, deal 10 damage mana cost, I think it is. Which is, it's 10 damage to all enemies. And he had Blindfold, so he just took the mana cost off, and suddenly he had this crazy setup. That was cool. So the tier 0s aren't completely dead in the water, and the tier 1 and 2s are, or the tier 1 that you get sometimes matters, but very infrequently does it. But I don't know, I think this character is just fine. The 2 damage fierce is solid, and sometimes the 1 damages are okay. It's a level playing field for greens, though. They're all pretty shit. Who we have here next? Reflection is sick. This guy, he's 2 HP. I mean, this guy, he's cool. He can go in the good tier. But my god, he is going to die. But Thrike is if I think Meddler is super well designed, Reflection also is super well designed. The Echo single use thing where you just cast a 3 cost, or like a 3 pip side and then use Thrike off of his Echo is so cool. I love this guy. I think he's such a cool design. And I don't think he's bad either. Again, I don't really care too much about death. If you die, you just come back. So it doesn't matter too much. Tinder, you know, I actually thought Tinder was like terrible when I first played it, but it's not as bad as it seems because you just treat it like you want it to die and suddenly it becomes a lot better. So I'm actually willing to put it in the good tier. Which is funny because I said the greens have a lot of variance, and yet I think they're actually going to all end up being about the same. But realistically, compared to the rest of the tier ones, it's like, oh man, I don't really want any of these guys. So this is like comparing them within themselves, because compared to like, you know, you want to compare Tinder to like fucking Hoarder. I mean, this guy's going all the way to the bottom for sure. It's not even a contest, but they're cool, they're wacky, they're fun, and if you have fun with them, I'm not gonna blame you. So relatively, I think they're all about the same in power level, though. Primrose is actually pretty solid, I think. I don't know if I've ever used this spell, or the tactic I should say, but I'm willing to put Primrose somewhere around, like, you know, good. Realistically, probably you just drop like Tinder down one if you don't want to just put them all in the same tier. But I'm gonna go ahead and go like this because I think Shovel goes in the bad tier. Shovel is goofy and basically just never does anything. I don't know. Sorry, this guy's name is actually Spade. He just doesn't do anything. You know, it's just you get mulch, heal 2 for 1 pip. So he heals 2 every fight or every round. He's super consistent and he's high HP, so he's the last one alive to res people. But I just don't find myself dying enough to want this res. So it's just like, what the hell do you do with this guy? He does what he does very well. He's like one of the most consistent characters in the game. Actually, he's probably the most consistent character in the game, no doubt. Now that I think about it, he always does exactly what he says he's going to do. He's going to roll you his 1 revive. And I mean, is it good enough? Probably not. But hey, he does it. And then going in the great tier is the cat. I would feel wrong to not put one of the greens in the top tier. And I unironically think the cat is pretty good because very often what you'll find is at least one of your characters on your run isn't really contributing anything anyway. Especially if you're playing green. So having them stuck on tier 1 for your green, and then suddenly the rest of your team is hitting their power spike, like, I don't know, you're hitting your tier 3s in round 10, you're going into the first major boss, or sorry, the first major boss in my mind is the 12th fight, which is Rotten versus Baron versus Lich. You're going into that fight suddenly with 2 tier 3s, and you're just crushing through it. Housecat's biggest weakness is that generates kind of suck, but you know, it's okay. Sometimes you'll see a really cool generate off of this, and sometimes you'll just have a party of 4 tier 3s that walk you through to the end because they're good enough. And both outcomes are fine. So, yeah, that'll do, I think. I'm glad I didn't try to cram this all into one video because look at all of these characters there are. We would be here for like, this video would be like 3 hours. So I'm going to stop it here. And I will come back maybe tomorrow, maybe a little later in the week. I'm not sure when I'll feel it, but I'll come back soon and I'll do the tier 2s and I'll talk you through it. My closing thoughts are that most of your starting party picks are going to be for curses. It's not like if I opened a run with like Clumsy, Lazy, Prodigy, Alloy, Acolyte. I'm probably not going to reroll because the party is bad, but if there isn't like a super softball early game curse like item poison, I'm probably going to consider just pressing the reroll button. That's the main thought. You have to be aware of how strong your party is, and this is a nice way to get an idea of what you should be aware of. But again, I strongly encourage not to just take my word for it. Go play the game a bit for yourself and form your own opinion, right? If you lose, ask yourself which characters you think really didn't contribute as much as they should have to your run. And, you know, the big thing in a game like this is make sure that you're getting correct assessments. Like, I don't know, if you go into a run and you lose and the reason you lost is because your lost rolls 6x's, that's just variance, right? It's gonna happen. You can't be like, wow, this character sucks, it rolled 6x's on me, because obviously that's not how it actually goes, right? Buckle rolls 8x's on you and you just go, ah, that's unlucky. But it's not like the estimation of the character drops a ton for that. He's the same character, just sometimes you're gonna go on bad streaks. So keep it in mind. But you'll notice also that the characters who are going to more consistently roll a lot of X's are towards the bottom, and the characters who do their job consistently end up towards the top. So, but that's just how I value things. You can play whatever playstyle fits your feelings. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something out of this. Feel free. I will leave a link in the description to the tier maker here, and you can make one for yourself, and you can hop in the Discord, link in the description, and you can send it to me and I will tell you what I think. I will see you soon for another one of these. Have a good one.